She didn't forget to tell me. She chose not to. That's the part I had to come to terms with eventually. Not in therapy, not in some journal I bought and never filled past the third page, but in a Walmart parking lot at 2 in the morning, sitting in my car with the engine running because I couldn't make myself go inside my own apartment. That's when it finally landed. My mother hadn't made a mistake. She had made a decision. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I grew up in a 3-bedroom house in Dayton, Ohio, the kind of house that looks fine from the outside. Tan siding, a basketball hoop in the driveway that nobody used anymore, a welcome mat that said home sweet home, even though home was the last word I'd have chosen. My brother was 4 years older than me. My parents thought the sun rose and set on him. I'm not being dramatic. I watched it happen in real time every single day. His name doesn't matter. I'll call him what he called himself, the smart one. He was pre-med by the time I was in middle school. My parents put a framed photo of him in his college acceptance letter on the mantel, right next to the family portrait from 2009. There was no corresponding frame for my acceptance letter when I got in 4 years later. My mother said she was proud of me. She said it the way you say bless you after someone sneezes, automatic empty, already forgetting before the words left her mouth. I wasn't a bad kid. I wasn't a troubled kid. I was just the second one, and somehow that meant I was scenery. My brother figured out early that any problem he created could be redirected my way. He smashed the car's side mirror pulling out of the garage when he was 19. I got grounded for leaving my bike in the driveway as a distraction. He got caught cheating on a chemistry final his sophomore year of college, and my mother called me that night upset, saying maybe if I hadn't been so dramatic at Thanksgiving, it wouldn't have been such a stressful semester for him. I was 16. I hadn't even been at Thanksgiving dinner. I'd been at my friend's house. I learned to be small. I learned to take up as little space as possible, ask for as little as I could survive on, and never ever make a problem bigger than myself. By the time I was 28, I thought I'd made peace with it. I had a job I liked. I was a paralegal at a small firm in Columbus. I had a 1-bedroom apartment with a decent view of absolutely nothing, a cat named Fig, and a Saturday morning routine that involved good coffee and no family contact. I thought I'd build something clean, something that was mine. Then my grandmother died. My grandmother on my mother's side. I called her Gran. She lived in a little house outside of Asheville, North Carolina, the same one she'd been in for 40 years. She was 81. She died on a Thursday in October, quickly, in her sleep, which is the only mercy in any of this. Gran and I had been close in a way that felt like a secret between the two of us. She called me every Sunday. She kept a photo of me on her refrigerator. Not my brother, not the family portrait, just me, at maybe age 9, holding a baby turtle we found in her backyard. She used to say I had my grandfather's eyes and his stubbornness, and she always said it like that was a compliment. What I didn't know until after she was gone was that she'd left me something. Her house. Not split between me and my brother, not divided among the grandchildren. The house outright to me. There was also a small savings account, nothing extravagant, maybe $40,000 she'd accumulated carefully over decades. That too was designated for me with a note in the will saying she'd already helped my brother significantly when he was in medical school and she wanted to make sure I had something to start with. I found this out from her attorney 2 weeks after the funeral. I also found out in the same phone call that the paperwork had been contested. My brother had filed a challenge to the will. He claimed our grandmother had not been of sound mind when she updated her estate documents 18 months prior. He had an affidavit. He had a doctor, not her doctor, a doctor willing to say her cognition had been declining. He had my mother's signature supporting the challenge. I sat in my car in the parking garage outside my office building for 45 minutes after that call. I couldn't move. Not because I was crying, because I was trying to understand how someone looks at a dead woman's final wishes and decides that's the thing to take apart. I called my mother that evening. I needed to hear her say it wasn't true. She said she just thought it was fair. She said Gran had probably been confused. She said my brother had put so much into his career, into his education, and he deserved to see some of that effort recognized. She said it without embarrassment. She said it in her normal voice, the same voice she used to tell me to unload the dishwasher. I said, Mom, she left it to me on purpose. She said, Well, we don't really know that, do we? I hung up. That night, I did something I'd never done in my adult life. I called Gran's attorney back. His name was Elliot, older, patient, the kind of man who seemed like he'd heard every version of this story and still took each one seriously. I told him I wanted to fight it. He said, Good, because she made sure you'd be able to. What I didn't know yet, what Elliot told me over the next hour, was that Gran had anticipated this. Not vaguely, not as a general concern. Specifically, she had documented everything. She had gone back to Elliot's office and had a formal mental competency evaluation done by a licensed geriatric psychiatrist 18 months ago, right around the same time she updated her will. She had written a letter, notarized, dated, witnessed, explaining her reasoning for the bequest and explicitly naming why she was leaving things to me and not to my brother. She had written, in her own words, I am aware that certain members of my family may dispute this. I am also aware that those members have had every advantage and every opportunity I was in a position to offer. My granddaughter has had fewer of both. This is my final effort to correct that balance. I read it 3 times. Then I put my phone face down on my kitchen counter and I just stood there in the dark for a while. Gran knew. She had known for years, and she had quietly, carefully, with a lawyer and a doctor and a notarized letter, made sure nobody could take it away from me. The contest didn't go anywhere. My brother's attorney sent letters. There were some back and forth filings that Elliot handled, the so-called doctor. My brother had found turned out to have a history of providing paid affidavits in estate disputes. Elliot dug that up in about a week. The competency evaluation Gran had gotten done was thorough, well documented and recent. My brother's case crumbled before it got anywhere close to a courtroom. He called me when he realized it wasn't going to work. He wasn't apologetic. He was matter of fact, like we were discussing a project that had run over budget. He said Gran had always been a little unpredictable and he just wanted to make sure things were handled right. He said he hoped this wouldn't affect our relationship. I said, What relationship? He didn't have an answer for that. My mother didn't call. I drove down to Asheville in November to walk through Gran's house for the first time as the person responsible for it. Elliot met me there with the keys. It was a cold day, the kind where the sky is white and the light is flat and everything smells like wood smoke and damp leaves. The house was small, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen with yellow curtains, a back porch that looked out into the trees. I walked through every room alone. Her reading glasses were still on the side table next to her chair. There was a half-finished crossword on the kitchen counter. The refrigerator still had my photo on it, the one with the turtle. I sat down on the floor of her living room, on the braided rug she'd had for as long as I could remember, and I cried for probably 20 minutes. Not about the house, not about the money, about the fact that she had seen me, clearly, plainly, without qualification, and she had made sure that her seeing me had meant something. I want to be careful here, because I've had a lot of time to think about my mother's role in all of this. I'm not sure she's a cruel person. I think she genuinely believes my brother's success is something she built, and that protecting it is her job. I think she genuinely, in some compartment of her mind, believes what she told me, that it was about fairness. But here's what I know from 31 years of being her daughter. I was never the child she was most afraid of losing. And when you grow up being the one they're not afraid of losing, it shapes you in ways you spend years unknowing. The house needed work, not catastrophic work, but the kind that accumulates when someone's been living alone and in their 80s. The gutters, a section of deck railing, the bathroom tile in the second bedroom. I took out a small home improvement loan, fixed the critical things first, and started spending weekends down there. I wasn't sure yet what I wanted to do with it. Then I started talking to a neighbor of Gran's, a woman 2 houses down who'd known her for 30 years. She told me Gran used to talk about me often. She said Gran would mention that her granddaughter was smart and hadn't quite gotten her shot yet, and that she hoped things would open up for her. I didn't know what to do with that. I still don't entirely. What I do know is that my brother did not get the house. He did not get the money. The will stood exactly as Gran wrote it, and Elliot said the documentation she put in place made it one of the most airtight small estate cases he'd handled in 20 years. He said she'd done his job for him. That sounded exactly like her. I've been asked whether I've spoken to my mother since. The answer is a little. Carefully. I don't go home for the holidays anymore, which is a sentence that used to feel like a failure and now just feels like a fact. My brother and I haven't spoken since that phone call in his matter of fact voice. I'm not interested in reconciliation that requires me to pretend the last year didn't happen. What I am interested in is this. Last spring, I spent 2 weeks in Asheville clearing out the second bedroom and painting it the same green Gran had in her kitchen back when I was small. I put up some curtains, I bought a chair for the corner. I brought Fig down and he immediately claimed the back porch as his. I don't know yet if I'll move there. I don't know if I'll rent it out, use it on weekends, turn it into something else. What I know is that I have time to figure it out. For the first time in my life, I have a thing that was given to me on purpose by someone who meant it, and nobody can argue that away. Gran knew what she was doing. She always did. I keep thinking about the crossword puzzle on Gran's kitchen counter, half finished, pen still sitting on top of it, like she'd just stepped away for a moment. That image has stayed with me longer than almost anything else from those weeks, more than the legal letters, more than my brother's flat voice on the phone, more than the silence from my mother. That unfinished puzzle. She was still working on things right up until the end, still trying to figure something out. I think about what it took for her to do what she did. She was 81 years old and she sat down with an attorney, scheduled an appointment with a psychiatrist she didn't need, wrote a letter she knew she might not be alive to see matter, and she did all of it quietly, without telling me, without making it a scene. That is a kind of integrity I'm still trying to grow into. She did the right thing not because anyone was watching, not because she'd get credit for it, but because she understood that doing right by someone means actually doing it, not just feeling it. That's the part that undid me, honestly. Not that she left me something, but that she thought it through. She anticipated what my brother would do, and instead of hoping for the best, she built something that could withstand it. That's not luck, that's wisdom. That's someone who has paid enough attention to the people around her that she knows who they are, clearly, without flinching. I spent a long time in my life making myself small because I thought that was how you stayed safe in a family like mine. Keep your head down, don't ask for much, don't make a fuss. What I didn't understand was that smallness doesn't protect you, it just makes it easier for other people to overlook you. Gran understood that. She didn't make me bigger in her eyes by fighting anyone. She just quietly, firmly made sure that when it counted, I couldn't be overlooked. When everything was resolved and the will stood, I didn't feel triumphant, I felt tired, and then slowly, something else, something I can only describe as solid, like a foundation had been put under me that I hadn't known was missing. I had fought for something. I had stayed in it when it was uncomfortable, when my brother was sending legal threats and my mother wasn't calling, and I was second guessing whether any of it was worth it. I stayed. And that staying, that refusal to fold, taught me something about myself that I couldn't have learned any other way. My brother had every advantage I didn't. Better grades got noticed, better behavior got rewarded. His future was the one the family organized itself around. And still, in the end, what he built on top of all that advantage was a scheme to take something from a dead woman who had already outmaneuvered him. That's what a life of being handed things does sometimes. It leaves you unprepared for the moment when something can't be taken, only earned. Gran owned that house over 40 years. She earned the right to give it to whoever she wanted. And she gave it to me because she believed I'd do something real with it. I'm trying to make that belief worth something.